That's a Longaberger basket, made in the USA, now closed unfortunately. Longaberger basket.
He can't combine
My wife
all
used to
the
be a distributor.
distributor.
All right, I'm
Oh,
about
can you give
ready,
me
so.
1 minute, please? Sorry.
You get a lot of media. CNN, and MSNBC, and WSMN 1510 on the AM dial in Nashua. Camp Constitution Press. Super Happy Fun America. Oh, John Hugo wants to make an announcement. John, you want to come up? You can make it from there if you like.
Real quick, we have decided we're sick and tired of the Southern Poverty Law Center labeling everyone, to the right of Joe Stalin, a Nazi and a white supremacist and all that. So we've launched the Super Happy Fun America Law Center, and we're taking on the left the way they take on the right. So we're naming groups like CNN a hate group, and Planned Parenthood and other groups like that. And
City Council.
yeah, well, we'll get there, but it should be very triggering to the left, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So we're the same people that did the Straight Pride Parade in Boston, and we're very good at pushing the media out there. We were the #1 story in the whole world the day of the parade, which is pretty impressive, I think. Thanks to people like Camp Constitution helping us out, and Dr. Felecia Nace, who's outstanding. We're here to stay, and we're going to push back against the left and their false narrative. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, John. Hey, folks, I want to welcome you to our luncheon, our monthly Friends of Greater Boston, Friends of Camp Constitution. And before we introduce our speaker, just a couple of things. We have, as some of you know, we have a publishing arm, and we put back in for the first time a book that Sam Blumenfeld, our late dear friend who was in these meetings, he wrote in 2011, and I inherited his papers, and I'm also the president of his foundation. And this is the first thing we put. We got a lot of stuff, and we don't know how much we're going to put in print, but this is something, dyslexia, school-induced dyslexia. So this is $10 a piece. If you want to get larger quantities, I'll be happy to accommodate you. And our little camp, I'm the only full-time person. We have a lot of volunteers. We are making an international impact. All over the world, people are downloading the alphaphonics, and we have a great story. A teacher in South Africa, in Johannesburg, happened to, she taught special needs students, and she was looking for a phonics program, and she found ours, and she used it, and her name is Shiona Van Wheat. She told me that the students she had, there was no progress in 2 years. They couldn't make any progress reading. She said they used our free online resource, and she said in 2 weeks they had 12 of the 14 became good readers. And we had her at a conference in Cape Town, and she gave a good testimony. We're going to have that available on our channel. So yes, I was involved. I was at the rally, the Straight Pride rally. I couldn't get into the parade. I was with Barbara from Harlem. She was running a little late, and we just couldn't get in there. My son was with me, but I was at the rally, and I heard this phenomenal lady, Felecia Nace. I said, man, I got to get to know this lady. And, we just said hello to each other, and we'll exchange business cards. But she's the author of a book called Top-Down Confusion. She is a doctor of education. She taught in the public schools in New Jersey. And, she was a very courageous person. I just love people with moral, I like physical courage, but moral courage is a little rarer. She was, they wanted to fire her. She's on a board of trustees. She'll tell you a little bit about that. And she stood her ground. So let's give her a nice warm hand, Dr.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Hal for having me come up here. I drove here with pleasure because, anytime we get to come together to talk about those things that are good for the country, I am all for that. So, as Hal said, the name of my book is called Top-Down Confusion. The subtitle is Greater Than Peak in Education. I want to first talk a little bit about how I came to agree on this title. So, top-down confusion are those things that filter down from the government into the classroom across the United States, and that really don't make sense to teachers, because I was a teacher at one time. And a lot of times we would get these, can you hear me back there? Okay. So a lot of times we would get these initiatives that filter down from the government, and the government would be very excited about these initiatives, But by the time they filtered down to where I was, I had boots on the ground. I was with the kids every day, And so by the time those initiatives filtered down to the classroom, they did not make any sense to us. You know, we as teachers would get together and say, where do we now find time to squeeze something else into our curriculum? You know, our primary goal as teachers, those of us who were good teachers who really wanted the best for the kids, was to get basic skills across to children. Reading, writing, arithmetic. We wanted them to have a strong foundation in that area. We also wanted to develop good critical thinkers so that they could make good decisions as adults when it came time for them to vote and to make other choices in life, right? Things have changed. You know, now we have states like California, Illinois, Colorado, New Jersey, and you know, it's growing by the day, pretty much. These states have come on board, and these governors of these states have mandated that these school districts in these states teach something called LGBTQIA. It stands for lesbian, gay, I may get the letters wrong, transgender, bisexual, Q is for questioning / queer, so you can use it either way. And I is for intersex, A is for asexual. Okay, it's a lot of content for, I think, adults to take in, let alone children. And so these states think it's perfectly okay for this now to be a part of the curriculum in school districts. The second part of the title, the subtitle is gray the new pink in education? A lot of people get confused as to what that means. It means, you know, we're telling kids the truth, or we're teaching kids truth anymore. Because truth is the anchor for all of us as humans. You know, we have to have something we believe in, something that is truth. You know, but what do we have today? We have terms like, which is becoming very popular, my truth, right? People say, you know, this is my truth. Well, truth is truth. There's no your truth and your truth. Truth is the truth. And then we have words like the new normal. What is the new normal? What happened to just normal? You know, and which there is a norm in society. People can argue that there isn't, and that's okay to have that argument, but at the end of the day, there is a normal. So, and I used this example this morning at a breakfast I was at, and it's in my book as well, but you go to the doctor, right? You pray that whatever the results are, they fall in the normal range, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, so biologically, there's a norm in our human society. You can deny it, people can change the language if they want, but we're teaching kids a lie by saying that you can just make up your own normal. Because there isn't, you know, there's not 3 or 4 different normals, it's 20, there's one normal. If you step outside of that normal, just know that there is a norm and you stepped outside of it. Many great scientists in history have stepped outside the norm, you know? There are great people in history who stepped outside the norm, but they did not need a safe space, which is what all the kids today need. If they step outside the norm or do something a little different, they need a safe space, a place where they can feel comfortable and, you know, cry it out and whatever. We need to stop giving falsehoods to children and tell them the truth and give them an anchor, something that they can fall back on. Even their religion is up for, you know, for grabs. It's fluid. Well, God's in the trees, he's nowhere, he's somewhere, he, you know, maybe he exists, maybe he doesn't. And when many of us in this room were growing up, I'm looking around, I think I'm right, we had an anchor. We had something that we knew was true. But as you're going to learn today, the agenda is to unearth, unsettle the traditional child, to turn his or her world upside down, okay? So that what is not normal in our society becomes normal, okay? So how is that being done? Government intrusion, we have way too much of it, right? I think all of us can agree on that. And especially in education. And this is dangerous when the government starts dictating to school districts what to teach. Because what drives government? Basically, it's not we the people anymore. It's who's going to back me, who's providing, who's going to fund my political campaign. And so when it comes to school districts, who should parents trust? I answered this question in my book, But remember, my book was completed in 2017 before we had the LGBT curriculum in New Jersey. So I did not know it was coming. I just kind of sensed that there was just too much talk about this topic. And so I wrote about it. And it's not pro, it's not against. I question, do we need it? So when it comes to school districts, who should parents trust? Now I would say trust no one. When I wrote the book, I said trust your local school administrators and trust your teachers over the state and the federal government. Why did I say that? Because just a few years ago, you really could trust your teacher and your school administrator. You could go to a teacher when I was teaching, and you could ask, parents always ask me, what do you think about this new curriculum? What do you think about that? And I could give them an honest answer because my job wasn't threatened at that time. This was not a long time ago. You know, we're talking about a little over a decade ago. Parents could freely come to me. We always had exchanges about what we liked, what we didn't like. It doesn't happen anymore. Teachers are scared to death to say anything that goes against this agenda. Because if they say something that goes against the agenda, they are likely to be fired. So they are given a script to say to parents. Very dangerous place that we're in. Where you can't have an open, honest conversation with the person whose salary you pay, who's around the corner, who's in the neighborhood. So now I would change that response to trust no one. Trust God, trust yourself, trust your instincts, and do your homework. There is a playbook to rid Americans of the First and Second Amendment rights. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, there's a playbook. And it is so systemic and strategic. It's frightening. There are certain states where you'll notice that the LGBT curriculum is being played out. New Jersey is one, and there are a group of us in New Jersey who believe that we were chosen not by happenstance, that these states that were chosen very strategically, because once it takes hold in New Jersey, it's going to go right up the line in the Northeast. So it's New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, and then Massachusetts. So, and I think, you know, I'm here because I want to say that we made some mistakes in New Jersey, I think, some errors in not paying attention, and I hope that Massachusetts does not make those same mistakes. The playbook, what does it include? You know, very specific states are outlined, there are very specific bills that are being targeted. Why? Because I'm going to skip to A. Why are certain bills being targeted? Because LGBTQIA and religion cannot coexist. They cannot live together. Most religions teach that sodomy is not appropriate. Okay, they teach against sodomy. And so these two, you have to kill one for the other to exist. They cannot coexist. So that's what's happening with the bills right now. They're very specific bills that have been targeted. One of the bills that just came up in New Jersey, which is still in play, is with regard to vaccinations. I don't know if you've had that discussion here. This is a very important bill to watch. This is not a light one. That, along with the gun law, to me, are two of the most important ones, as well as the LGBT. I'll explain why. Because with this vaccination law that they're proposing, your child can just be vaccinated by the school. If there's an emergency. If the health commissioner in your state feels there's an emergency situation, and they deem that your child needs to be vaccinated, irrespective of if the parent wants it or not, the state can go ahead and vaccinate your child without your permission. Ooh, talk about a slippery slope, because it's not going to stop there. So let's say your child says, I feel like a girl. I mean, really, this is not a leap. I feel like a girl. So first of all, you can only counsel those kids in one direction. Right? Because if you counsel them in the other direction, it's called conversion therapy, and that is against the law in New Jersey. So if your boy is feeling like a girl, and the school deems that it's in his best interest to take hormones, I mean, this is where this could be headed. So it's a very important one to watch. And so far, our Senate has not voted on it in the affirmative. Our Assembly, it has passed the Assembly. So this is, very dangerous stuff. But this is where we are, because to kill parent rights and religious exemption, which is what they were using to say, I don't want to vaccinate my child because it goes against my religion, or for whatever reason, right? That's a parental right. But if you can get rid of every bill that has a religious exemption, then you can move forward with your LGBTQIA agenda. Okay, because even parents right now are saying, well, what about my religious freedoms? LGBTQIA goes against that. I don't want my child to be a part of this curriculum. Guess what New Jersey did? Something very nasty. What they did is they decided to have an LGBTQIA curriculum that is incorporated in your reading instruction, your math instruction, your social studies instruction, your science instruction. So yeah, you can exempt your child, but then you homeschool because it's in every single subject. Yeah, it's not just a month. It's not just we're celebrating LGBT for a month, or we're going to teach you about people who are different from you. They embedded it in the lessons, every single lesson. So the only option a parent has in the state of New Jersey now is to homeschool or put your child in private school. And for parents who don't have, who are just trying to make ends meet, it's one of the most expensive states in the United States. So if you're just trying to make ends meet, you don't have the money to send your child to private school, or you don't have the time to homeschool them, then what do? So some vicious stuff is happening, and their playbook, the playbook of the left, they don't play fair, right? Gloves off. So B, changing the gun laws. I know in New Jersey, they kind of tested the waters because they, about a year ago, a law came into effect where you can only have so much ammunition. If you have a gun, they didn't say you have to relinquish your weapons, but you had to relinquish, if you had over a certain number of bullets, for example, you had to relinquish them. You didn't get a refund for them, right? This is just to test the waters. And now look at, in Virginia, look at what's happening there, full blown. They're proposing a law to confiscate people's guns, law-abiding citizens. So, these are the things we have to watch. How do you create a well-organized militia, which is part of our rights under the Constitution, if you don't have weapons? I mean, that to me is a well-organized militia. So, these are some of the biggies to watch, the big things to watch. And then vaccinations, like I said, is going to likely lead to prescribing medications in schools. And this is what the law looks like in part. So
Where can people find this if they wanted, where could they find that law? Where is it?
this is, I Googled it.
Okay.
You just Google it, New Jersey Vaccination Law Code.
Code.
It'll come up.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, this directly attacks the religious exemption. Parents did come out. This is something that is, I think the most effective is when we had the numbers. So hundreds of parents showed up at the State House, and this was during the Assembly hearing on December 12th. I thought this quote was a good one. Essentially what this bill is doing, it's forcing all of us to accept the pharmaceutical company as our God and our religion with no exceptions. So that was a comment made by Sue Collins with the New Jersey Coalition for Vaccination Choice. It was effective to a certain extent. It did pass the Assembly, but it stalled in the Senate because right after that march on the 12th, the protest on the 12th, on the 16th of December, it went into the Senate, and the Senate did not vote on it because you had people, again, outside, rallying, banging on the windows. It was vibrating, they said, some reports said, inside the State House. Good, that it needs to vibrate. I mean, we have to assert our power. And here another quote, power to the people. meaning we the people. You know, we are the ones who elect these officials, and we really have to stay vigilant. In my first book, called Massaging the Mindset, I talk about the influence of cable television. We have too many channels. Okay, it's time to cut the 200 channels or 500, whatever ridiculous channels it is, off and start paying attention to when the laws come up, to when these bills come up, you know, and start addressing them. In 2013, you guys know who Chris Christie is, right? Yeah.
Republican.
Is he?
That's right, yeah, he is. He was our governor. And in 2013, the conversion therapy law bill came up. Okay? And he was in a tight situation because it was going to pass anyway. But he also was looking at a presidential run. So he decided to go ahead and pass this law to outlaw conversion therapy. But when he did that, it created a recipe for disaster now. But of course, he didn't have foresight to think that our current governor, Governor Phil Murphy, would mandate the LGBT curriculum. Why is this disastrous? Disastrous combination. Because now, if kids experience gender dysphoria, they're listening to all the LGBT lessons, right? What if an ex-president was gay? And what if some of our famous poets and scientists like George Washington Carver was gay? That's supposed to be one of the things that will come up in this curriculum. They may start thinking, well, maybe I'm gay. You know, I mean, these are things that kids think about. They try to connect with their lessons, with the things that they're learning and what people are teaching them. So if they experience gender dysphoria, parents can only get them counseling in one direction, to transition into if you're a boy or girl, or into if you're a girl or boy. They can't bring them to a psychiatrist, and a psychiatrist can even say to them, well, maybe you're not a girl, or maybe you're not feeling that way, really. Maybe it's something you saw on television. That's outlawed. That's outlawed. The mention of maybe you're not. Outlawed. Psychiatrists are trained now, and counselors, to counsel kids in one direction. If parents counsel their children against homosexuality, what do you think will eventually happen with this dangerous law in place? Right? I mean, this could be seen as child abuse. You're not allowing your child to be who they want to be who they naturally are, which we know is, you know, not natural. So, interesting. So how is this agenda being pushed? We see it every day, right? You turn on your Google account, you turn on your Yahoo account, and what's the top story of the day? Even with our troops over in the Middle East right now, what's the top story? It's not the troops. If you go online right now, onto your Twitter account, any account, top story of the day is some trans story. They'll find it somewhere in the world where some little girl is transitioning or some boy is transitioning. This is not our biggest problem in this country. I mean, you know, why is this top news? It's top news because it's an agenda. Do we have anything against LGBTQIA people? No. I think basically in our society, nobody really cares what you do behind closed doors. I certainly don't. But
As an adult.
As an adult, absolutely. But our children need to be adept at reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and so many other things. They need to know their Constitution. How about that? Right? And if we want to teach them to be good to people, to accept people, why not just teach them how to be good citizens? Right? Citizenship lessons work. Or how to be more systemic. How to work systemically with people. Hey, you know, you have a job to do in society. You have to get along with people. How do you do that? Those are very basic lessons that don't teach them about all this sexual content. Yeah, and media role models. I don't think you can even be in Hollywood. I think do they take your Hollywood card? You know, if you're not pro-LGBT, right? And these are people kids look up to. We looked up to role models when we were younger. Television figures, sports figures, etc. But they're all aligned with this agenda. Politicians, no one can see you because you're behind the camera, but you and I were talking earlier about the fact that we have politicians now who don't always vote in a conservative manner. You know, they are looking at who's going to fund me for the next campaign, so they have to be careful as to how they vote. And we can't have that. I mean, as we the people, if we're voting in conservatives, they need to vote conservatively. You know, in New Jersey, for example, when the LGBTQIA law came up, only 2 of our Republicans voted no. And I can't give an exact quote of the numbers because I don't have it in front of me, but several of them abstained, and some of them didn't show up that day. You know. Yeah. But so this is where we are, and we have to demand that you can't abstain. You need to show up for these important votes. Even if you lose, we need to have it on paper that you were against this.
Well, that you fought for us.
That you fought for us.
That you fought for us, right? It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, this is where we are with politics. And in terms of books, they're finding their way into our public libraries, into, yeah. This book is at the Hillsborough Public Library. And a friend of mine sent this book to me because they know that my book is all about LGBTQIA and children. And they sent this to me and said, I can't believe I took my 2 sons to pick out books. It was on a Saturday afternoon, and this is displayed in the library. You know, and he has one son, he's like 5. Look how colorful. Right there with the books for teaching ABCs. Yeah. So this is targeted toward primary grades. What can a primary child learn from this book, honestly? Can they learn their ABCs first? You know, or is the agenda for them not to be able to comprehend this material, to just be indoctrinated? Because in Camden, New Jersey, how many of you are familiar with that city, Camden, New Jersey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was a very thriving community at one time. You know, they have factories and things like that, and as factories packed their bags and moved south or moved over to China, they lost a lot of that industry. It's a pretty impoverished area, in inner city, and it was the #1 murder capital in the United States for a while. I think they're doing a little better in that direction. But their reading scores, the last reading scores I checked, and you can double check it, it's on the New Jersey Department of Education's website under report cards. 16% of children passed reading.
Oh my God.
In their end of the year test, the summative test, you know the ones we took in school in June, right? We took them late, they take them a little bit earlier now. But 16% of these children passed their reading test, which means more than 80% did not pass. They didn't meet the minimum to pass. And we're going to teach them LGBTQIA history. That's called an indoctrination. These kids cannot, if you can't pass reading, which a large part of it has to do with comprehension, how are you going to comprehend adult sexual content that's mixed in with your reading, science, mathematics? There's only one direction that information can go. Because how are you going to think critically about it if you can't comprehend well? I think there's something very unethical about that. So how are books finding their way into your public libraries? Check your library, see, just check. Go back to your communities, check your local library, and see how many LGBTQ books there are on the shelves. Flip through them and see what the content is looking like. We're not children, they're 17. Can they graduate from high school? And I don't have no objection to making something like this into like a gay studies course in college. Right? If that's what you want to take as an elective, not mandatory, as an elective, like we have women's studies, or we have Greek studies, or whatever. If a child's interested in this, the lifestyle, and they want to study it, fine. But save it for college. I don't believe that this belongs in our K-12 classrooms.
You're right. Not in English, maybe in health.
Not, well, not even in our health classes. Because the translation of LGBTQIA, really, let's be real about the language, right? We soften the language to make things sound good, but LGBTQIA history is nothing more than the history of sodomy. That is what it is. And it goes against so many children's religion. I don't think that it has a place in our public school system. Where parents, we are still a nation of 70% Christians in this nation. We have other religions. The Jewish religion, faith, does not see sodomy as something that is acceptable. Okay, so we have a lot of religions that are being offended by this teaching. So why would we present this to a K through 12 student body? Yes, John.
Just real quick, in California, we're now seeing in the curriculum now, the normalization of pedophiles, which have now been rebranded as MAPS, minor attracted persons. This is the next wave we're going to be dealing with. Are you seeing any of that in New Jersey?
We're just starting out, but we're following California.
You know that's true.
Oh, I know that's
Oh my
true.
God.
And
Minor
that's gonna,
attracted MAPS, that's
Yeah.
the new acronym.
yep,
Like they're a
that's the
protected
next
class.
step. That is, I do believe that is the next step. That's where this is all going. LGBTQIAP,
Yeah.
yeah, for pedophile. That's where it's about sexualizing children and nothing more. And I do believe that there are some LGBT activists who really don't see that. I think there are some who don't see that. From their perspective, they're pushing this, well, it's a civil rights issue. Fine, then create a gay studies course in college and let kids choose to study it. But you can't, just place sexual material in a K-12 classroom that could lead kids to gender dysphoria and think that's okay. So, I'm going to go back a little bit. So how are these books finding their way into the public libraries? Things to watch out for at your local public library. Organizations are operating under the guise of banned books advocates. They are advocates for banned books, like Tom Sawyer, right? Some of the classics have been banned, right? So, we have gay activists who have attached themselves to the banned books groups. Okay, and so they will give libraries, if the library attaches themselves to some of these groups, they will donate free books to them that have been banned in classes and school districts, right? Like some of the really good classics. But along with those free books, they'll throw in 3 or 4 LGBT books. And libraries who accept these gifts, right? If you accept the classics, you also accept the LGBT books. And that is how a lot of these books are finding their way into the library, whether they're quality books or not. So please ask your libraries, are you attached to any groups that are banned book advocates? And if so, which ones, and what types of books are they donating?
I bring in Bibles on the banned books month. They don't like it.
That's a good one, you bring in Bibles.
The horror.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. So this was the superintendent, what she had to say. I'll just let you read that.
Can you read it for the sake of the camera? Because
Sure.
you
Yes,
can't.
so Superintendent Elizabeth Jewett explained that the curriculum was expanded last year to include a broad range of literature. Talking about the book that is currently floating. Literature to reach all students, not just works that portray traditional gender and sexual identities. She said that the expansion of the English curriculum is in alignment with the strategic plan and is the result of a 2-year research process which included professional development for the English department staff. The book Fun Home is a last in a series of graphic novels read throughout the 4 years at Watchung Hills. The book chronicles the author's childhood and addresses themes of sexual orientation and et cetera, et cetera.
Calling it
Yeah.
literature is an insult.
Yeah.
They used to be banned,
Yeah.
and now it's for kids to read. What's going on in this society, I don't like.
Yeah. And so this was one of the teachers who would apparently stand up at the board meetings at Watchung Hills High School and he was pro this book staying intact. And he ended up being arrested in October of 2019, just a few months ago. It says a Watchung Hills Regional High School social studies teacher was charged with sending sexual photos to a student and asking to have a sexual relationship with them. Okay, Somerset County Prosecutor Michael H. Robertson announced Tuesday Sean D. Giovanna, 50, of Somerset, was arrested on October 10th. So, and he had previously served as president of the Watchung Hills Regional Education Association. He was the president of the association. Very interesting. So, a playbook for conservatives. I'm closing with this, and you can add to this list. We need a playbook. You can throw out the old playbook, we need a new playbook, right? So, what does that playbook look like? Trust no one. You know, I mean, in terms of politicians, don't think that we can just vote them in and they're going to do the right thing. We have to stay on top of them. We have to call their offices, email their offices. You know, show up to some of the events where we know they're going to be, and talk to the core of them. You know, we can't just say, we voted you in, go do your job. It's that, you know, it just doesn't work anymore. Bring the congressmen and senators back home to the community. Let's take Ocasio, for example. Right, she's one of our favorites. She's an easy target, right? So Ocasio, when she went down to Washington, one of her biggest complaints was what? I can't afford an apartment in Washington. Well, I saw her the other day in an interview. She's looking pretty comfortable right now. Okay? I mean, these guys go down, they're paupers. They go down to Washington, they're paupers, and what happens? They get pulled to the side, right, by the local congressmen down there, by the ones who've been around for a while, and they say, I'm going to tell you how you can increase your wealth. Don't worry, stick with me. And they start voting together and making deals. Well, they're supposed to, we send them down there to represent us. We need them here in our neighborhoods, right? We can go knock on their door and say, this is what I need for you to represent me in Washington. Why are they down in Washington? They're so disconnected from the everyday man. So we need to bring them home here in our communities, and I guarantee you they won't be millionaires at the end of it all.
Joe Biden, 15 million,
Yeah.
and Obama just bought a $15 million home in Martha's Vineyard. They're worth about 80 million, they'll pay both of them.
Yeah, they go down into the magic bubble,
And Obama couldn't afford,
paupers, and they come out.
yeah, he couldn't afford anything.
That's right. So, you know, this is one of the things I think that we need to push for in our playbook. Keep it on Facebook, keep it out there. Our congressmen need to come home. If they need to vote, half of them aren't there when voting days come up anyway, or for sessions. If you look at some of the Senate sessions, most of the seats are empty. You know, what are they doing?
Yeah, where are they?
Exactly.
Where are they?
If they were here, they would be more accountable. I think that's something we could push for. And a campaign for children to return to church and teach children how to say, this, you are treading on my rights. If their playbook, the left's playbook is to say everything goes and anything goes, our playbook should be to teach our kids how to stand up for their moral rights, how to stand up for the constitutional rights. And we should teach them that early. Okay, because the gay BCs, books like that, they're not waiting for the kids to become adults to indoctrinate them. But where are we on the right in terms of teaching our kids that you have constitutional rights and you need to speak up for them? You know, and if they get trampled on, you need to come home and tell me, and then we'll take it to another level. Churches, you know, we need to make ministers and churches accountable, and they're not. They're waving the rainbow flags, which goes, again, against many people's religion. And they're doing it boldly. But I think the way that's most effective here is not just like going and knock on the church door, because they know what they're doing, right? They did it purposely. They have to walk past the flags every day. when they enter into the church, so they already know what they're doing. But the head organizational leaders don't like trouble, you know, and that is where I think we can put the pressure. So if it's a Presbyterian church, then you go to the Presbyterian heads, and that's where we make the complaints. And maybe we'll have more, I think, leverage there. Call out the insider trading, right? Follow the money. Follow the money. That's what they're doing in Washington. It's no big secret. Everyone in this room knows what they do is they push an agenda like LGBTQIA. They take their money and, you know, if you're in the stock market, I'm going to, and if I know I'm pushing the agenda, and I know my buddies in Congress are pushing the agenda, then I already know where to invest my money. That's called insider trading. You create the market and you invest in the market, you know. And this has to stop because we all know it's happening, but nobody's really doing anything about it. And I think that would be a great thing to have in our playbook, is to really go after these people who are doing the insider trading and say, no, you can't just create markets so that you can then turn around and invest in them, and then all of a sudden you go from being a pauper to a millionaire. The LGBTQIA came in on a Trojan horse. It came in New Jersey, and I don't want this to happen to you guys in Massachusetts. It came in a bill package with something that was kids with disabilities. Okay? The bulk of the law, the way it was written, on the front end, was written for kids with disabilities, and parents jumped at it. What a shame, right, for those parents, because they didn't realize that they were being used. Those parents were the ones who pushed for the bill to get through, and it was kind of smart in a way, because these are the parents that show up to everything at the school. If I'm a parent of a disabled child, I taught special needs for a while. No parent fought harder, I think, for their kids than parents who had kids with special needs. They were always fighting for something extra. I don't want my child to be overlooked. I need him to have X, Y, and Z so he can focus, or I need him to have, you know, a quiet space so he can get his work done. They were always visible and they fought hard. And so to get them on the side of this law, which was just kind of tacked onto the end of it, the LGBTQIA curriculum was tacked onto the end of this law. So they got these parents of disabled kids on board, and they were the ones who rallied and were happy to see this bill get through. And if it happened there, that's likely how, when it comes here, it will happen. It will be attached to something else. It will be attached to something else. And like I said, the bulk of the law was about, you know, disabled children. And at the very end, there's a little something about LGBT, and that's how the law got passed. And lastly, conservatives in different states need to rally around each other. We need big numbers. You know, like with the gun law in Virginia, I plan to travel there to be there. I think it's a historic moment in time. If, you know, God forbid, that law gets passed, we're in trouble as a nation. Let me give you a story. I don't condone violence. I do not condone violence. But when you mess with people's children, you're very protective, right? So there's a small town in Georgia, and I wanted to run by the library today. Am I running over time?
No.
A little bit.
Okay, so I'm wrapping up.
Okay.
There's a small town in Georgia, I wanted to download this for you guys, where they wanted to do transgender bathrooms, and you can Google it, but I didn't get a chance to download it. And the parents went to all the meetings, and they said, we don't want this. We don't want a boy to just walk into our little girl's bathroom and say, he's feeling like a girl today, and be able to do that. What about the rights of my daughters? You know, and vice versa. What about the rights of my sons to privacy? So when reason didn't work, the superintendent of the school got death threats. Unfortunate that it had to come to that. These parents, you know, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. If you're a parent in this room, you know how you wear your heart on your sleeve for your child. And the parents were so frustrated because the school district kept saying, no, you know, this is law, this is going to be policy, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is going to be policy. If a child identifies as a girl, they can go to the girls' room. they identify as a boy, they can go to the boys' room. And the parents said, okay. Well, superintendent got death threats. Very unfortunate that in this country it had to come to that. And the policy ended up being changed. And now, right on the heels of that, they want to take our guns. That concludes my talk.
All right.
We'll have an informal Q&A session. Some people may want to leave. Just want to mention two other things. Of course, our wonderful family camp coming up, July 19th to the 24th, with some great guest instructors, including Alex Newman. He's coming up with his whole family. And of course, Professor Willie Soon will be returning, along with Lord Christopher Monckton. And I just, 2 weeks ago, I confirmed this young conservative black gentleman, C.J. Pearson, which you may be familiar with. He's 18, I think he's 17 or 18, and I got a hold of him, and he actually returned my email, and he called me, and he said, I'd love to come up. He said, this is just where I need to be. So we have promotional brochures here. It is a family camp. We also have unaccompanied adults and unaccompanied minors, and we look for help. It's up at the Sinking Hills Christian Camp and Retreat Center, just south of Lebanon. It's a beautiful venue. And some of you, did anybody know Mrs. Shirley Lane? Anybody in this room might know Shirley? Well, Shirley passed away in October at the age of 96. She was a phenomenal woman. Her husband, who was a mentor of mine, he died in '07. And it was their wish that their home, which is actually owned by a church, which I'm a trustee, my wife and I, would be used as a learning center library. So that's what we're turning it into. And Felicia's staying there because we have guest rooms. And our goal is to have Reverend Stephen Kraft and his wife move up and kind of run it, and be open to other groups to use. It's not a huge house. It's 2 blocks from Lexington Battle Green. It could probably accommodate 45, 50 people.
It's a nice home.
You know, kind of a little bit of a tight squeeze, but we want to use it for promoting the kingdom, you know, as we would say in the Christian community. So with that, we want to thank you, and if people want to get a copy of Felicia's book, you can get it on Amazon. Just put it in
It's right there.
top down confusion. So with that, thank you, and we'll see you next month. God bless.
Thank you.
Felicia, I have one question. You know, all the feminists that protect the females and everything,